Little Women is a novel based on the four March sisters Jo, Meg, Beth, and Amy, plus their mother Marmee, whom lived in a small village with no money. Meg was a governess for the king's family, Jo a writer, Amy a painter, and Beth dreamt of being a pianist. Their father also worked in the American Civil War as a pastor, which meant he was never home. Laurie is also a critical character in this story as he later becomes Jo's best friend. Laura May Alcott, who is the author of this story, loosely bases herself on the character Jo. The story starts off with the four sisters sitting around the table on Christmas Eve whining about how they won't be getting any presents this year as their father had lost all their money. At first, they think that they will get themselves presents this year with the dollars that they had left over, but later realize that they each want to get their mother Marmee a present. On Christmas morning, each sister wakes up with a book underneath their pillow, which their mother Marmee had made for them. Each sister found this gift as a very sentimental gift. As the middle of the novel approaches, the March's aunt, whom is called Aunt March, visits the four sisters. Aunt March hints about a trip to Europe to both Jo and Amy. As Jo is the second eldest daughter, she assumes that she would be the one going. This turns out to not be the case, as Aunt March was disgraced at Jo's unladylike ways and instead took Amy, who was very ladylike. Before Amy starts sailing to Europe, she asks Laurie if she could accompany her if something were to happen, in which he agrees to. While Amy is in Europe, Beth began to feel very down. Jo wanted to know why Beth was feeling down and soon come to the realization that Beth may have fallen in love with Laurie. Jo is afraid of this sudden realization as she is afraid that Laurie is in love with her and not Beth. Jo decides to go to New York so that Laurie can develop feelings for Beth. Marmee agrees with Jo as she believes that they are too much alike and wants Jo to be happy. Before leaving for New York, Jo decides to tell Laurie that she is leaving. He responds by saying that she will not get out of his grasp so easily. Jo arrives at the boarding house where she will be looking after children while starting to write more of her stories. While at the boarding school, she meets a professor named Frederick Barr. Jo is impressed with his kindness and begins to become friendly with him. Jo then begins to write sensationalist stories that she is not very fond on, but does it for the money. Frederick finds out about this and is not very fond of the idea of her doing this. Because of this, Jo stops writing the stories. While Jo is in New York, Beth starts becoming very unwell. Marmee, scared of this, decides to write letters to both Meg and Jo to come home and help her. Marmee does not bother Amy of this news as she does not want to bother her travels. Jo travels back home, leaving the boarding house and Frederick, whom she had become quite fond of. Jo decides that she wants to have a day out with Beth as she is afraid of what is going to happen. On the day out, Beth confesses that she knows that she is going to die as she had scarlet fever. However, Beth makes a wish to Jo that she continues with her stories, which Beth loved to read. With Laurie back home as well, Jo and Laurie meet up. During the exchange, Laurie confesses his feelings for Jo. Jo tries to stop him speaking his mind and declines his proposal. Because of the awkwardness between Jo and Laurie, Jo suggests that Laurie returns back to Europe as she wants to help Beth with her sickness. Laurie meets up with Amy and sees that she has grown up to a beautiful young lady, and they both end up developing feelings for each other. Beth does not recover from this sickness and soon dies. Before Amy hears of Beth's death, her and Laurie cannot deny that they have feelings for each other and decide to get married. As they both reach home for Beth's death, they decide to tell everyone of their news. Jo becomes very discouraged of this news as she feels like no one will ever fall for her again, and starts thinking about Frederick and if he will ever come for her. Later in the novel, Frederick comes and finds Jo. Jo starts seeing hope of their relationship. They then decide to get married, while Jo also decides to publish her story that she started to write during Beth's death. When thinking about Jo in this story, I think of young women and children today. When this story was made, it was not common for young women to go out and do what they want. I believe that this has set a positive message towards young children as it allows them to think and do things on their own. This can also be seen in the book when Jo goes to New York, stops writing sensationalist stories, and as she didn't want to write them, and also publishing her book. Jo never let anyone make decisions for herself and did these things with the help of positive people around her. Furthermore, this demonstrates the power of positive language, as her family and friends always supported and praised her for what she did and never criticized her and the decisions she made. Therefore, for a student to fully do their best, it is critical for a teacher to praise them or to give them constructive criticism instead of blatantly criticizing them. This will further develop their own decision making in the long run, as they will believe themselves that they can do anything they put their minds to. As a teacher, implementing and communicating the code of ethics such as integrity, responsibility, and so on is also vital for a student to do the best that they can, as it will further develop their understanding.